We're celebrating MNC's 40th anniversary this year. March 8th was the actual date of when MNC was established 40 years ago. We'll be spending the entire year hosting different events to commemorate and celebrate 40 years of fighting for Métis rights and participation and inclusion, and advancing the distinct and unique Métis voice at the national and international level. We kicked off some of our events here in Ottawa when we grand opened our new office here on Elgin Street. It's really incredible to have this space to come together with our new team that we've been building over the last year and a half. We've really come up with a great way of working together for our Métis governments. And, this space that we have here in Ottawa is also for our Métis governments. And we really wanted our Métis governments to feel that this is their home base when they come in and do their work in Ottawa as well. We want them to feel that they can come here and that they feel included. The grand opening of the office was a wonderful event. I think there was way more people than I had even anticipated showed up. And I think that's a testament to the work that we've been doing at the Métis National Council and showing people that, there's a new way of doing business with the Métis National Council. And there's a lot of people who want to do this work with us. So our government partners, but also different organizations that can continue to advance our priorities. They want to do this work with us, and they all showed up and celebrated our 40th anniversary with us. I mean, honestly, I'm not even entirely sure how it came to be. I'm not sure if Nathan was pulling my leg when he said that it was my idea, but I the whole time believed that it was his idea. I still do firmly believe it was his idea to bring together a game of hockey players between ITK and MNC and have the participation of members of Parliament from across Canada as well. And so our team started working on organizing the Team Bannock Cup, and we had the first game just in March of 2023. And our team, the Métis National Council's team, was comprised of folks from every single governing member. We had about 3 or 4 players from each province come out and play, and we had all age ranges from 14 up until seniors. We actually had a survivor from the Ala Cross Residential School come and play on our team, and we just had a really great time. It was so much fun to get together in a space where, we're not there to discuss really pressing critical issues and make decisions in the moment. It was just a time to come together and have fun and build community. And that's exactly what we did. It was so wonderful to do that with ITK. The stands were completely packed with folks from all across the country. And from what I heard, the stands, it was a lot of fun for them to watch the game. And I had a lot of fun playing. I hadn't played in about 10 years. And what made it even better was that we won the game. Kansai Kioao, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us here today. As we see over at the Patoche Festival grounds, it gets bigger and bigger every year, and as does this procession over to the cemetery. And thank you for staying for the last day, because this day and what we're doing here today, and I get emotional every time I talk about it. This is so important to who we are as Métis people, to come to honor those who made the ultimate sacrifice for the Métis Nation, to honor those who are buried in this cemetery, to honor those who might not have a headstone around this area as well, to honor the women and the children who fled to the East Village during the battle, to care for our future generations, to care for them, to make sure that they could live to tell the story of what happened here today. And we are those future generations, to come here and to talk about the stories of our people fighting for what is right. And we are here to continue to do that today. One of my elders has said that, the Métis people here in 1885, they were fighting, and we haven't stopped fighting. And we always need to remember, though, what we are fighting for. It was days after the Battle of Batoche when the government came back to our communities and they turned our people against one another. They had people come into the communities and say, sign a piece of paper and say that you weren't fighting in this battle, but my brother was, and my neighbor was, and turn them in. From that day, the government has been turning us against one another, not only as Métis people, but as First Nations against Métis people as well, because it's equally important to recognize that our First Nations kin fought with us here. A few weeks ago, I was in Winnipeg and I visited the gravesite of Louis Riel. And just a few steps over is the gravesite of Chief One Arrow. And I went and I laid tobacco on that gravesite and I prayed for our future where we can work together again to fight for what is right. This is why today is so important to be here. And it's so wonderful to see so many people here. I'm also carrying a photo of my grandma's cousin, Sophie McDougall. Many of you know her. She passed away this year. We come here not only to honor those who fought in the battle, but those who have fought their whole lives. Sophie has done some incredible work for the Métis Nation in language revitalization, and we're here to honor those who have fallen this year as well. So thank you, everyone. It is so meaningful to me to be on these grounds, the homestead of my great-great-great-grandparents, for you to be here to honor this day. Thank you so much. This is so meaningful. So we're back in Alacross, Saskatchewan. Today is the 3rd annual National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. We spent last year's National Day for Truth and Reconciliation here at Alacross and spending the day with the survivors from the Alacross Residential and Boarding School. I had the opportunity to speak with them. I've built relationships with many of them over the last 2 years, and I've told them that I will continue to come and spend the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation in their community with these survivors until justice is served for their survivors, for the community, for their families. And the Alacross Residential School is formally recognized by the provincial and federal government as a residential school, and the survivors can have justice, compensation, and the recognition that they so deserve. We have certainly come further than we have in this past year with the recognition of Alacross Residential School and the survivors and their fight for justice, finding different ways to have their stories shared, to continue to advocate for the awareness of what took place here in this community over 7 generations. But there's still a lot of work that is needed to be done. We need the federal government and the provincial government of Saskatchewan to come to the table to negotiate, to settle this once and for all so that the survivors can continue down their pathway of healing, so that they can know that their stories are heard and that their stories are believed. And until that day, we'll continue fighting. The Métis National Council will stand behind the survivors of Alacross, and I will continue to be here on every September 30th, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, until that day comes. I've been really fortunate over the last year to get to spend some time with folks who were around 40 years ago in the development and the conversations of why the Métis National Council was needed. Folks like John Morrisseau. I had a really great conversation with Elmer Ghostkeeper at the M&A Assembly this summer. And then I even met, and I had known him for some time, but I didn't understand his involvement in it, Tim Lowe from Métis Nation, British Columbia, and other folks along the way who were involved in the very beginning of the Métis National Council. And I think it's really important that I have the opportunity to meet with them to say, what was the intent of starting the Métis National Council 40 years ago? Because it's really important that we look back on the 40 years, we think about where we really came from, so that we can think about where we need to go in the future. And so it's a really great opportunity for me as president of the Métis National Council to spend this year, our 40th year, in that kind of state of reflection. When I was elected 2 years ago, I knew some changes needed to be made to the Métis National Council. Our Métis governments have progressed at a super rapid pace over the last number of years, and many of them signing self-government agreements, now negotiating and trying to pass legislation for the implementation of self-government. And the Métis National Council kind of remained in this stagnant state of, it existed, it was the national voice and the international voice, but it didn't evolve to create the collaboration and the space for our Métis governments when they had evolved so much. And so for this last year, it's been an opportunity for me to think back, to really understand where the Métis National Council had come from. What was its purpose? What purpose has it served to this point? And what purpose does it need to serve moving forward? And that's a lot of change for an organization, and it will take some time. And I think we have done a significant amount of work in the last 2 years to evolve the Métis National Council, to make it really that national space for our Métis governments to come together, to collaborate, to have conversations about what is the shared priority areas of the Métis Nation and how can we move forward together while respecting their jurisdictions as Métis governments and respecting that everybody's in a different place. Everybody has different priorities based on where they're located. Geography plays a really big role in determining what our priorities are. But there's always going to be areas where we need to come together as one Métis Nation, and we need to move forward on those areas together. We're all struggling still to make sure that Métis citizens across the Métis Nation homeland can have access to equitable health care. That's one of those areas where we'll continue to push together. We have our permanent bilateral mechanism, the space with the federal government to come together and work together to negotiate long-term sustainable federal funding to be able to deliver programs and services directly to Métis citizens. That's the space where the Métis National Council can come in, can convene, can facilitate, and really bring people together. I think a really big part of the work that the Métis National Council has done over the last 2 years and will continue to do is bring people together and making sure everybody's voices are heard in policy development at the federal level too. Of course, we know the federal government is a system that wasn't designed for Métis people, but we need to insert ourselves where we can so that we are not left behind and that we are no longer forgotten people. And we can do that through policy work. And so we have a brilliant team at the Métis National Council of our policy staff who collaborate with policy staff within each of the Métis governments to make sure that we're working together to influence policy at the federal government as well. Over the last 2 years, it's been thinking about how do we evolve? How do we create a space where Métis governments can come together and feel heard and continue to move the Métis Nation forward as one Métis Nation while respecting the work that they're doing as Métis governments within their jurisdictions.